Welcome back, everybody, to the Who Do You Like Here podcast. Joey C-Note with me, as always, is the kid. Back from a little 3-week hiatus. Haven't been really back on since the Preakness. Got a lot to cover and catch up on. Kid, how you doing?
Good. It's good to be back. Big race week, obviously. Excited to get back in handicapping the mode here and win some races.
Yeah, so 3 weeks last time we were on, we handicapped the Preakness. Once again, we tried to beat the favorite journalism and came up a little short with journalism winning that race. In one of the most controversial, probably, stretch runs you'll see in the Preakness. I know people are swinging both sides on this. We'll just discuss that, I guess, a little bit. The pace of the race, kind of, in my opinion, was par for what we were expecting to see. And the finish was not what I expected to see. What are your thoughts on the stretch run there with journalism finding the hole through a tired horse on the left and a tired horse on the right with the jockey that was trying to close the gap?
I feel like it really wasn't a great ride from Rispoli. They won the race, but I don't understand why he puts his horse at the rail, bottles him up, and then has to make room for himself down the stretch like we saw. And I think this is the second time he's done that too. I think he did in the Derby as well, where I think it could have costed the horse the race because he puts his horse in a weird position. Because if you look at the horse, and a lot of people were saying this as well, is if you look at the horse and the way it finished the race, it was completely loaded down the stretch. So there's really no reason to box yourself in at that point in the race. Like if you know you've got a horse underneath you like he does, why not put this horse in a position where he's off the rail, where he can tip out and just close down?
Mm-hmm.
Instead Rispoli puts him at the rail between three horses and then has to hope that the hole opens up, which it kind of did, but then it kind of didn't, which obviously caused all the jostling back and forth because Pratt moved over, but then moved back. And when he saw him move over just a little bit, he tried to force his way through, which obviously caused Pratt to come back in, not knowing he was there, try to pull the horse out. Then he anchors out, and then Pratt obviously is like, no, that's not going to happen. Pushes back into him, obviously impedes the horse that's at the rail, and then they kind of sneak through and they win the race by the shadow of the wire. But I think it was just ultimately, again, poor positioning from a jockey that knows he's got a winner on his hands. Why put yourself in that position? I don't think he should have been taken down because ultimately I think Pratt caused the initial contact, I guess, at least the way I saw it. So I don't think he needed to be taken down, but I think it was a horrible ride by Rispoli, even with the win.
Yeah, I think if you watch the backstretch in the Preakness, I agree with you. Rispoli's indecisiveness to go outside or inside, even midway on the backstretch, he takes him off the rail, looking like he's going to make a wide approach on the turn and then pass them maybe 4 or 5 lane or wider, and then he brings them back in as Ortiz is starting to tire, right? Who's been there the whole time at the rail.
Right.
And as Pratt is kind of, he had the option to go outside of Pratt, he chose to stay in. So he chose the opportunity he put himself in that position.
Yeah.
That's number one. Shame on Rispoli. Number two, I think he still had enough. Obviously, the horse was loaded. The horse was completely loaded. I don't think he needed to force the issue, and I think he still could have cleared outside of Pratt and still won the race. So when I look at it in that, it kind of is a judgmental piece. Had he done that, he still probably wins because the horse was definitely loaded. But for him to stay inside and then have the contact, whether it was forced, I guarantee you Pratt was not trying to make it easy, and he didn't. He saw the hole. He saw the 8 was tiring, so he tried to stay so that he couldn't get between, and he was forcing him to the outside. And the longer they went, Rispoli was like, "Now I can't go out. This is the only way to get through for me to be able to win the race." And just as that was happening, that's when Pratt tried to close the door on him. The contact was made. I just think it was a shitty ride, and I honestly, I think Pratt is at fault, but I think Rispoli is just as fault because Pratt's horse, his ass end went out first. It looks like he ducks in to close the door, but it's actually Rispoli making contact with the horse's right shoulder to, in my opinion, Pratt's rear flank that caused the ass end to swing out and then the horse to go in. That's where the first contact started. Then he forced through, and the bumping there is like anything you see on any other major race that they're not going to disqualify. But the initial contact was started at the hind end of Pratt's horse, and that's because Rispoli put him in a bad spot. So I really don't know either way. I'm not gonna say that he should have been taken down. I wouldn't have argued it. If they would have gone the other way and taken him down, I wouldn't be sitting here arguing he should have stayed up. But I'm also not going to argue that he should have come down if they left him up. So I'll leave that one alone. But the race was, he definitely was the best horse in the race. Just a terrible ride. And now we're coming into the Belmont, which I don't know. I don't know where we're really sitting on. We'll find out when we come to handicaps. We both think journalism favors in this race at Saratoga. But nonetheless, I think it made some excitement for the race. I couldn't agree with you more. It's a shitty ride by Rispoli.
Yeah, I mean it's multiple occasions where he's putting this horse in an unfavorable position, especially when you've got so much horse underneath you. It could be because he's nervous, and he thinks that that's the best route. Obviously, he thinks it's the best position to put the horse. It's a huge race. It's the biggest race that he's ever won. It's the biggest race I think any Italian rider has ever won. So a lot of accolades for him to be successful. But again, you're putting your horse in a position where you're hoping. And this is why I don't get with a lot of races. You're putting your horse in a position where you don't know if the hole's going to open up. You need to get lucky that the hole's going to open up. So in a 20-something horse field, you're probably looking at better odds because there's so many horses, so many people doing whatever, and you might get lucky that way. But when you got a shorter field of 9 horses now, and they're all bunched up there, there's no reason for anybody to go outside the norm and just do something different. I think the variability too in that race was a lot lower than it was in the Kentucky Derby, But again, you put your horse outside of those horses, you probably win by a length and a half, 2 lengths, and draw off just because of how much that horse really has. But again, too, I mean, all up to them too. Though I mean, they did win the race and they got it done. But it'd be interesting to see if they do the same thing in this race, because I think if they do, and he puts them at the rail and he puts them in traffic and has to fight through, I think you're gonna end up a little bit short in this race, which we'll get to handicapping here shortly. But
and we'll give what we think is going to happen and where they're going to be positioned at. But that is an excellent point. When you're talking about a 20 horse field, that's one thing. When you're talking about half or less, 8, 9 horses in a race, you shouldn't have to be worried about carving your path to where your horse is, with a horse that is the favorite, was probably the best. We've continually said the horse is a great horse. He ran fantastic. He just puts him in a bad spot. He didn't have to be in that spot. So I couldn't agree with you more. He had plenty more opportunities. And if you watch the backstretch, the overhead, the view overhead, you see Rispoli go out, and then within 2 seconds he goes right back in. I'm like, he doesn't know what the fuck to do right now. He didn't know. I'm sure he did, trying to save ground, and he wanted to be at the rail, but by the time he needed to move out, it was just too late.
Like if you watch the Kentucky Derby too, like if you watch Sovereignty, right? It's a perfect ride by a jockey that knows the horse, knows what he needs to do, has a game plan coming in where he was way behind. He went all the way around traffic, made the move at the right time. Didn't have to worry about fighting through traffic because he was all the way to the outside and knew that he had a horse like that. That's what you needed to see out of Rispoli in the Preakness, is he knows he's got the best horse. He's got a ton underneath him. Why put yourself in traffic? That's the question. I'm sure everybody on that team was probably asking the same thing: is why are we putting this horse at the rail? So I would expect a tactic change, but you never know.
I will say this: these are 3-year-olds, so they're still green. They haven't run a shit ton of races. Their lifetime races are at a minimal at best. I'm not really going to blame Pratt, because if I'm in that race and I'm in Pratt's position, the one thing I'm not going to do is open the door for him to just blow through. If you're going to win, then earn it. And he did earn the win. So I'm not mad at Pratt. Plus I do think that, after, like I said, the initial bump, and you could see what he was trying to do with the reins. He wasn't trying to impede completely and close and clip heels or anything of that nature. It just looks worse than what it is, because of how egregious that first bump was, where it took his hind quarter out. It just looks like he dips in to try to actually just take him out. And Jose, for that matter, at the rail. Jose took the brunt of it, but his horse was dead anyways. I still thought Pratt had an opportunity to still maybe close some ground. Saez had the perfect ride to be able to get through and just get the lead, and almost stole that race.
Should have stole that race. I mean, I feel like you could have got a little bit more out, but I mean, the horse was tiring, gate to wire, it was like, it looked for 95, 98% of that race that they were going to win the race. Literally, I even thought he was going to hold on at the wire, but
the last 70 yards is 2 jumps. The last couple of jumps, that was it.
And you could see him getting into them, but it just, at that moment, I guess you're just kind of on your own island and you're trying to do what you can. But
yeah,
well, it's tough.
it is tough. What does the narrative look like? Let's say he doesn't get through cleanly. He takes a little more out of the horse before he gets cleared. Comes in second. Now you've got second in the Derby, second in the Preakness. What does the narrative play out for this horse going into the Belmont with 2 seconds?
Probably not running the Belmont if I had to take a guess. Yeah. Maybe they would just try to get one underneath them, but you're coming back to back in short rest. It's you don't have much time. I think the story is, I guess, and everybody's question is who's better, Sovereignty or journalism. Yeah. I guess that's the story, is who's the better of the two horses, right? I mean, you're looking at a horse that's super fresh versus a horse that's coming off of, 2 races in 4 weeks or 7 weeks, I guess now. But I think, there's quite the storyline to be written, I think, on Saturday. But
agreed. And it's interesting. You have a horse that wins the Kentucky Derby, skips the Belmont. You get the horse comes in second in the Derby, runs in the Preakness, wins it. Now they're both back in the Belmont. So I don't know if this is the match race that everyone's trying to figure out that it's going to be. Again, we're going to get to the handicapping portion in our opinions here, but if that's what they're setting up here, is just where these two horses finish to who's the better horse, the horse that is second and first, or a winner and a no-show with a skipped race. Maybe this is the final matchup to determine that. But that's a great point. I will say Mike McCarthy did a great job of getting that horse in tune and ready for a 2-week turn.
Yeah,
which is what the Triple Crown is all about. The conversations always come up: should we change the Triple Crown, extend it out? It's not fair. It's not supposed to be fair. It's not supposed to be easy. And you're supposed to be producing horses that can withstand being able to turn around in 2 weeks. And that's not what the industry is doing. So maybe we're going to go on this next 36-year stretch without getting a Triple Crown winner, because we're not breeding accordingly and allowing ourselves to have the horses that are able to turn around that fast. Or maybe this racing industry actually just fades out. We'll find out. Yet to be seen. But no Triple Crown this year. Don't see anything changing in the near future. Moving on to more somber news, obviously, the passing of Christophe Clement just this past week. Saw a lot of Twitter activity. Just a very impactful trainer to the sport. Kind of a very humble guy in his interviews. Never met the man personally. Only seen him in his conversations on TV, and from what everyone has said that personally knew him and has met him. But a huge loss, at what I still consider, I guess, an early age for someone that does what they do so well in training so many horses. So it's kind of sad to see the passing of Christophe. And I did see that, obviously, his son now taking over the stables. They've changed the CC for Christophe Clement Stables to just Clement Stables, so to still honor the legacy, which is kind of nice. So
yeah,
I don't have any opinions on it.
No, very sad, huge loss to the industry and the sport in general. I've got high hopes for his son. I know that, I did think, now looking back, because I had no idea he was sick. So I feel like either I was just misinformed or they just had it under wraps pretty well.
Yeah.
But you did start seeing him kind of at less, races and kind of less apparent out there. So obviously things may have taken a turn. But I've seen his son at a lot of the races. A couple of years ago, you started seeing him kind of introduced into the industry and kind of taking a little bit more of a leap, in handling things. So, very high hopes for Miguel and, the family. I think, he's going to follow in his father's footsteps, and I think they're going to have just as much success. So but yeah, sad news overall. And I hope they I don't know if they have any horses, and I'm assuming they probably do, but it'd be nice to see him get a win on Saturday if they do have any entries.
So Miguel got his first win today. I think it was near the last race of the day at Saratoga. So he did get a win today for Clement Stables, which was nice. Kind of a nice he had to get that first one and then kind of like start the new legacy here for the stables. Obviously, you think about Clement, you think about the turf horses that he's had his hands on, his ability to do so well on the turf. You can bring up the Rosario Clement connection that was very strong. And I know when we first started doing this podcast, it was one of your biggest connections that you would go to and it was paying off dividends back then. Maybe not so much, not because of the horses, maybe more of, I would say, Rosario and his lapse of judgment sometimes where he positions himself. But used to be one of your strongest connections, so I know that that play angle was always big for you.
Yeah, I'd like to see that the revitalization, if that's even a word, of that connection. Joel Rosario, maybe not Joel, but maybe a different, jockey that
Yeah,
just goes on there and they click and they go on a spurt. That would be great for the pocketbook, for the money, for the legacy, everything. So
yeah, agreed. We've got we're gonna move on forward here. We're gonna get to the handicapping section here and move forward in the podcast. A couple things here. We're at Saratoga, obviously. Belmont still not full up and running. So we got Aqueduct closing for good, and then we got Belmont opening eventually, and then getting, I believe, the 2027 Breeders' Cup. I believe it was announced, and I think Keeneland is getting 2026. So in the Aqueduct closing here, I don't know if I was just blind to it. I don't follow New York racing like I used to, back when I was a kid, or even more so in more recent years. I kind of tend to stay away from New York racing. I know you're a little more into the New York scene as well as California. I'm either Midwest or Gulfstream is kind of where I'm at. Usually Kentucky racing or Florida. But on that note, Aqueduct closing is a huge, big, setback too. It's a very historic track that is going to be no more. And I just heard that news, and I guess I wasn't abreast of what was going on with that situation.
The common theme nowadays, you're seeing track close after, one after another. So not very surprising, but and from what we heard too, I mean, it's not like, there are people, jockeys we've talked to where they're like, don't go to Aqueduct. Like there's no
Yeah.
reason to go to Aqueduct.
Yeah.
You're going to get more enjoyment of watching the game, or the races at home,
Yeah.
rather than going to the track. It's just, it was just a track, it was like, I'm sure the people that went there, the people that, that was kind of their home, are probably a lot more devastated than we are. But
Yeah.
it seems like the Belmont track, once it opens up, is going to be, immaculate. It's going to be crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be everything you hope to see in a track. So there's some silver lining to it, but again, you hate to see a track go down. You hate to see that happen because it becomes a theme and it becomes like,
Yeah.
the new norm where, these small tracks or these smaller tracks are just closing. But again, Aqueduct is 7 horses in the winter. You really got to be slumming if you're really, looking for action at Aqueduct,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I guess.
aside from their big race days,
Right. Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, I agree. I think Belmont, from what they're building, it's kind of like how Churchill's done theirs, how that's been all renovated, and how well that looks. And you see that on Derby
Yeah.
Days and on TV. Belmont should be just like that. I think we're just running into these. We're going to have a handful of big tracks, and then obviously Golden Gate closes. We're talking about Gulfstream possibly closing. Who knows about Santa Anita? We had Hollywood closed not too long ago, so we're losing tracks, and then we got a couple that are being built up. So we just may have just some some huge facilities for racing, and then I think the little guys are kind of petering out, especially on the Atlantic coast. I don't know about the Laurels and things of that nature of Monmouths and how they're going to last, but we'll find out.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. Time will tell.
Yeah, sad day to be in the sport, kind of.
Yeah.
A lot of downside, but upside here is that we've got I think it's rolling pick fives actually on Saturday, if I heard correctly. I didn't double check that, but I know that there's multiple pick fives. We're actually going to target the pick 5 on Saturday at Saratoga for the Belmont, which starts in the 9th race and ends on the 13th, which is the Belmont. So if you're ready, we can just get right into the handicapping.
Yep, I'm ready.
All right, so let's start in the 9th race. 9th race is 5.5 furlongs. This was going to be on the turf. It's the Grade 1 Jaipur. It's a purse of $500,000 for 3-year-olds and upwards. So in my handicapping, it's pretty cut and dry on how I went forward in what I'm looking at. If it's dirt sprints, it's all breakout speed, gate to wire, and if it's turf, it's basically I'm trying to come off the pace. So if you just look at the early pace figures and late pace figures, you can figure out all my exactas and all my combinations on the verticals. So I'm going to go with the 10 actually in this race, which probably maybe is a little bit surprising. There are some heavy favorites in the race, but I'm going to go with the 10. Coppola. This is Umberto Rispoli that we just talked about. He's on the outside, so I don't know how much he can really fuck things up from that side if he's going to go to the front. It should just be a gate to wire outside move. Really good pace figures from an early standpoint, especially in the second, the E2 pace figures. Horse has been running in 22 and 44s and 45s and should have that speed and be able to get over. Now the races they've been running have been grade twos. So Keeneland, Gulfstream Park, Churchill, horse travels well. I don't know if there's a comparison from Saratoga to any track. I didn't really look at the analysis. I know that Ryan usually puts out some analysis here, and I briefly looked at that. But as far as like comparing horses that do better at Saratoga from certain tracks, every year I forget what that number is or what track that is. So I'm just gonna remove that data. If you know the data, it's probably gonna help you out. But the horse is shipping in from Pimlico and running on, I believe it was Preakness Day or just prior to that. So I'm going to take the 10. I think it's going to be a gate to wire finish. Rispoli was on him last time in a non-graded stakes race, $125,000. Got the lead and just lost at 5 furlongs. Horse likes to give out at the end, but I think the speed right now, I've seen a few horses that have the same kind of tactic go out and then fade that aren't fading right now at Saratoga. So the early months that we've seen previously on Belmont Stakes at Saratoga, it's been early speed. So give me the 10 on top. I'm probably going to do some boxing here. It's not my most solid pick in this race, but I also like the 2 Think Big. It is the favorite. This is one that should be coming off the pace, but the horse doesn't fall that far back. You can see it being 8th, 9th, 7th, 4th, but literally it's only a couple, 2, 3 lengths off. Should be near the pace early and can finish big. It has one of the best late pace figures of everybody. So if it's within a couple lengths of the 10, probably could go ahead and win it. So maybe the favorite does win this race. I love Ben Curtis, and I really love the 47-3 workout on May 31st for 4 furlongs. And then I'm going to throw the 4 in there, which is my sneaky pick. My Boy Prince, Jose Lezcano, and Mark Casse. It's another one that has some decent early fractions that I think could be part of the pace early, but does have the ability to hang on and go longer. So last time at 6 furlongs won, that was a $150,000 non-graded stakes race. And in the 2 grade threes prior, those were at a mile and the 16th. So I like the early foot, although running a tad slower than the 10 runs. I think My Boy Prince is a price at 10-1 to be able to hang on. Speed figures are improving. I think that last race alone with Lezcano, maybe they did find something here at Belmont at Aqueduct last time out. And shortening up, I think, doesn't hurt this horse at all. Just can't be going the mile races and or put it back on synthetic if it doesn't pan out. But I think the 4 is good enough. Right. Those are my 3. I'll probably box all 3 and use all 3 in the horizontal 10, 2, 4.
Yeah, I think too. I have to put a disclaimer out there. I don't think there's any way I can get a better outcome than I had at the Preakness in terms of my picks. So, I think if you followed and you tailed at the Preakness,
can we talk about that? That
yeah,
was 4 straight winners.
4 straight winners.
And then going into the Preakness. I got
trying to fade the favorite,
tons of emails. Well, you did have it in there in the spread.
Right.
Wasn't your top pick,
but
it wasn't your spread pick. So if you took the kids' top picks, yet you had the singles in every single race as your top pick for the first
singles
4.
in the first 4 races.
Which is pretty insane. Absolutely insane. And we were off on. I said black, you said white. I said ups, you said down. You were correct on every single one. I was totally off. I'm catching a lot of slack on Twitter. I'm catching a lot of slack in the emails that I need to pick up my game. So I'm rolling the dice here in this first leg, hoping to get something that you don't that's going to pan out.
Well, I think it's your turn now. So that's why I was putting the disclaimer out there because, like I said, there's no way you can go red hot like that. Maybe you can, but I don't know. It's going to be tough.
Fresh eyes, man. Fresh eyes.
That's true. And Saratoga is tough. Saratoga is always a tough track for me. Usually because you see some of these crazy bombs come in and it's hard to put together, but be that as it may, I landed on the 9 AG Bullet as my top pick in this race. So Flavian Pratt, Richard Baltus, this horse last 4 races, run the grade 1 in 3 of the 4 and has been competitive and right there every single time. I think this horse really does like the sprints better than the distance races that they've raced. As you can see on the form, the shorter the distance, the better they do. Last time out at Churchill, I'm kind of drawing a line through that entire race. Because if you watch the race, they put themselves kind of in a bad position. They kind of put them in a position we were just talking about, put them in real tight, and then had to steady because, they didn't get the hole and get what they needed in that race. So ultimately they lost by 5 1/4. And lo and behold, it was Rispoli on them. So maybe a little bit of a common theme here we're seeing. But now you're getting Flavian Pratt, who obviously, in my opinion, is an upgrade, especially in New York. He rides lights out and he's going to do what he needs to do on Saturday. But if you look at those other 3 races, all grade 1s, and they're losing the races, the last 2 races they lost no less than a length off, and you lost a Sacred Wish, which, I mean, it's a monster of a horse, and that was at a mile. And then if you look at that 5 furlongs race at Del Mar right before that, they just lost and they just missed by a neck. So again, in the sprint races, you're getting back to a sprint, you're getting to 5.5, and you're getting an aggressive jockey with Flavian Pratt aboard. So I'm going to take the 9, take a swing there. Underneath, I think you'd be crazy to leave off the 2, right? I mean, the horse just looks like it's coming into its own. Has met the progression in the last 5 races. I mean, they finished third in one of them, otherwise they've won 4. 3 straight coming into this race, posting its highest speed figure last time out. 6-5 is very much deserved here. And I think it's going to be a very difficult horse to beat. It's going to be off the pace, kind of sitting a stalking trip. And I think that, that's going to be a horse that's going to try to kind of knock down the speed there. You'd be crazy to leave the 2 off. And then the horse that I took a look at is the 8 for my third choice, a horse that, the last 2 starts, again, at 6 furlongs, so you're getting a little bit shorter. You got better stats from a training perspective at the sprints. They just missed in the Aqueduct race, 150,000 ungraded stakes race. They won by a head, and then they, followed it back up with, losing by a length with Jamie Rodriguez aboard. So again, you're getting an upgrade in jockey. You're getting Jose Ortiz. You're coming off the layoff too in that race where you lost by a length. So you got your freshening up race in there. You're coming into a good race where, again, you're going to be sitting stalking maybe a little bit further off the pace than they wanted to last time out. So I think if you put this horse a little bit closer, you might have some success and at least pick up, second or third here. But yeah, I like what I'm seeing there. Good training coming into the race at, I think it was Delaware, a 48 flat and 4 furlongs, the best horse that worked that day. And obviously if you look at the breeding too, right, California Chrome breeding to boot. So I mean, at a price of 10-1, I will definitely throw that horse in there. I think Jose is going to have a decent day too on Saturday. So that's kind of where I landed for this one, 9 with the 2 and the 8 underneath.
So quick question to you. In your opinion, you think it's Baltus asking Flavian to take them out on AG Bullet more so than Rispoli going to Coppola over AG Bullet?
Absolutely.
Okay. And that probably makes the most sense.
Yeah.
That Baltus is going with his jockey that he wants and the preference to take Pratt.
Yep.
But I mean, outside of Rispoli, Smith and Alvarado were the only ones to ride this horse in the last, basically in the last year and 2 months. Interesting enough, a little bit off the board for both of us. So we're starting out. Someone's got to be hot here. So we'll see. Hopefully. Let's go on to the 10th race. 10th race, a mile and 16th on the inner turf. It's a grade 3 Penning Ridge. Purse of $300,000 for 3-year-olds. I'm going to go right to the inside. Now I'm going to go with Flavian and Zulu Kingdom. Again, we're going a mile and 16th on the turf. I'm looking for someone who can close, but doesn't have to be that far back. And this horse is kind of more tactical, and this is why I'm getting the edge to this one. Last time out in the American Turf, which was a grade 1 at Churchill Downs, just sat up the pace and ran him down, and that was at a mile and the 16th. And then if you really go back to the Pilgrim of last year, that was more of a mid-pack kind of run, sitting off the pace. Smaller field, it was only 8 horses, but the horses run in big fields, small fields, can run forwardly placed, can be near the pace, or it can sit off. I just like the tactical ability that Chad Brown has in this horse. And I like that they're working it on the turf too at Saratoga. Not the best time on a 49-1, but at least they got a feel for it. But should be the favorite. I think it makes the most sense. I'm going to go with that one on top. In no specific order underneath, I like the 3 States Rights. This is one that comes from deep closing. This is Jose Ortiz for Sherry DeVoe. I love the combination when they team up. They're hitting a lot of big races on certain days. Big race days like this usually pays off. It's a non-Lasix race, which really doesn't matter. The horse ran 2 seconds on Lasix the last 2 times out for this year. Prior to that, though, was racing pretty strong at Finger Lakes, Keeneland, Saratoga, and winning races and being very close and being able to gobble up ground. So I think the combination that they got here for Jose and Sherry is going to be what's really going to make the difference here again. And a horse that can actually run him down with some really fast fractions. I like the 4 also Flying Mohawk, Dettori and Franco Dettori for Whitworth Beckman. Now, the last race I'm going to draw a line through is in sloppy conditions. And then prior to that, it was on dirt. And now we're going back to turf, 2 back with synthetic. So you really got to go back to where the horse had 2 in a row at Churchill and at the fairgrounds. And both of those were on turf last time out in January of this year. And that's kind of the ride I'm looking for, is sitting off the pace again. Another horse that is tactical, can go to the front if has to. Dettori likes to sit off, and he likes to make his move. The 4 is a slight edge, I guess, over the 3 if I had to. I'd love for a 1-3-4 my number to hit, but I think it's more of a 1-4-3 if I'm breaking it down. And then my last horse that I'll throw in there for a price is the 9, Noble Confessor. This horse ran the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf back in November. probably its worst showing, but it was only beat by 2 lengths. Yeah, it was 6, but it was only 2 lengths at 29-1. Comes back on Lasix for the first time out this year in May. Still has not broken its maiden. So this horse has run the Pilgrim second, second in a maiden 85,000 last time out, sixth in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf, only 2 lengths off the leader, and prior to that, in a couple $100,000 maiden races. I think this horse has a great opportunity. Now, Dylan Davis is getting them out, and Dylan's got the hot hand on certain race horses. When he teams up with Pletcher, I don't think it's his best opportunity, but there's something about the horse that screams out to me that says this one could at least be in the exotics. So I'm kind of looking for someone, again, another price horse. Off the Lasix doesn't matter. The horse ran a bang-up race in the Pilgrim, and I think maybe they got this one fine-tuned ready for this race. So I'm going to throw the 9 in there at 12-1 for a price as well. So I guess if I'm picking in order, it would be 1, 4, 3, 9 for me.
Yeah, it's a tough race. I like the 7 here. This is
Here we go.
Marcassi, Irad. Horse is going to go on the front end. They're going to go to the front. They're going to try to push the fractions and do what they do. Obviously, last time out, lost to Zulu Kingdom, right? So that's another obvious choice that I'll touch on here after. But at a mile and the 16th, last time out, fits condition. You're dropping way down in class. Now you're going into a grade 3. This horse has definitely shown glimpses of really, really solid work. It's also had a couple races where you're kind of scratching your head, especially like that race at Keeneland, right? I mean, it was not their best showing. Kind of looked like they gave up in that one. But if you scratch that race,
Transylvania,
if you scratch that race and you look at everything else, I mean, this horse definitely fits the bill. Irad's going to do what he's going to do what he needs to. This horse is 6-1. I think it's a great price for this horse, especially the last time out in the grade 1. They were right there. They just ran out of gas. So I think, just Irad getting the mounts underneath him, knowing when he needs to, give this horse a breather.
Yeah.
Well, I think he'll definitely do, kind of world of difference for him. So I'll take a chance at 6-1 with Irad in New York, on a horse that I think is pretty live. Like you said, the 1 makes a ton of sense here. It's a world beater. It's a great horse. This horse is 5 of its last 6 races it's won, in dominant fashion. They don't need to be on the front end. They just kind of sit with the speed, sit right behind it, and then they go and they win every time. So, they had one horrible showing, which if you look at the notes and if you watch the race, they lost the crop. It was just kind of they couldn't get what they needed out of the horse when you got nothing to use underneath you. So if you scratch that race and let's say you just take that one out in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, no less, which is a huge race, in and of itself. If you take that race out, I mean, this horse is, 6-5 is even a gift, right? I mean, it's a great horse. I'm going to try to beat the favorite here. Might be very stupid, but like I said, I'm going to take a swing with the 7. I got the 1 underneath, and then I like the 3. I think the 3 is very interesting here for everything you said. Last 2 times out, right? Yeah, ungraded stakes races, or no, actually it's allowance company, not even stakes races.
Yep.
But just coming in second, the last 2 races, just missing. They just missed 3/4 of a length off in the last time out, on a good turf. I think that if you obviously gave them a little bit more time, give them a little bit more distance, which you're getting in this race, you may have seen a different result, because that was only at a mile. So if it's condition here, I think everything kind of points to this horse has got a good and capable run in them. I think Cherie sees that. She's also getting Jose, which is obviously a dominant connection. And like you said, on a big stakes race day like this, why not them? So I mean, it looks the part. I'd like to see this horse on the track, see how they work out, but I'll take a swing underneath for them to pick up some of the pieces late here too. So
I like the extra half a panel too that we're going here from the mile, because typically the horse looks like it's ready to go a mile and 16th, mile and an eighth. So I think that actually bodes well. Maybe the timing was just off. That extra 16th of a mile, they win that last race.
Correct.
So moving up in class too, but horses in really, really good condition. Seem to be really, really, really good form. Okay. So once again, we got some similarities. My tops and your unders, or my unders and your tops. We're kind of seeing some things the same, but we're already a huge ticket on the pick 5.
Yeah.
We're already spread out really, really deep. Hopefully we finally a single here going into race 11. Race 11 is 7 furlongs. It's the grade 1 Woody Stevens. First of $500,000 for 3-year-olds. I almost feel like you should go first so that I could see if maybe I could sync up here, but I'm gonna take a long shot here, so you probably don't have it. I'm gonna go with the 9, Neaquist. Now, scratching your head probably doesn't make any sense. I know you're shaking your head, doesn't make any sense.
I don't have it.
Here's why I want to go with the 9. So, Safi and Jose Ortiz. The thing about this horse is if you take out the Kentucky Derby where it came in 13th by 27th lengths and was near the front and just faded out at 1.25 miles, and now we're cutting back in distance. But if you take that race out, the third in the Florida Derby getting run down by Tappan Street, obviously not mad. That horse had the lead. I didn't think anybody was going to catch Neaquist in that race. I remember having it. I thought it was going to be cashing a ticket, that we were going to get a Derby opportunity. Still did through that process for the third in the Florida Derby. But nonetheless, if you scratch out the Kentucky Derby, this horse really hasn't done anything wrong. And the workouts are strong coming in since the 4 furlongs, 47-4. That was at Saratoga on May 29th. I think at 10-1, this is a price play that I want to have somewhere in the exotics. It's a tough race to take it on top, but I'm just going to roll the dice here and see if that forward speed is actually going to be able to last. Hopefully that cut back in distance also helps. And I don't think it likes sloppy conditions because it did win at 6 furlongs in a state bred allowance, and then it just didn't really perform after about a mile, a little less than that, 3/4 of a mile in the Derby. Nonetheless, I think it's time for a bounce back. That 75 speed figure coming off of 96 and 91 should be an improved effort, and against these, I think it has a great chance. So give me the 9 on top. Fuck it, I don't care. Then I'm going to go again, no specific order. The 3 Macho Music, last 3 races for 2025. The speed figures 92, 99, and 100. 7 furlong races for 2 of them and a mile. We're going back to the 7 furlongs. This horse is won by 11 lengths, won by 3 lengths, and just lost by 5 lengths in 165 non-graded stakes race. But I'm really looking at the Pat Day mile in the grade 2 with sloppy conditions nonetheless. But the horse, I think 7 furlongs is the ideal distance. I love Castellano teaming up with Rohan Crichton in this race. They're 1 for 1 right now in the combination. But I know that they've met a few other times and had some other opportunities. The statistic just shows traditionally of recent bias here, but I think the horse just fits the bill here. Forwardly placed, should just go gate to wire. Going to be tough to beat. I am putting the other horse on top here that I picked, the 9 on top, but the 3 I would not be mad at the 3-1. This is again going to be another box opportunity here for me. The 7 Caliquio, again, 3 times out, 2 of them maiden races, then a $400,000 non-graded stakes races. Manny Franco's got himself a nice horse here for Weaver. It's a big jump up, but again, this is another one that should be forwardly placed, and the early fractions go really well. You got some 22s and 44s last time out, which those kind of fractions at Saratoga, you might be able to hold off and run them off their feet. Last but not least, I'll go the outside. The 10, Chancellor McPatrick. Flavian will pick up a minor piece in this race. I don't think it's going to win the race. The Bluegrass, kind of a disappointment after coming off a second place in the Tampa Bay Derby. I'm not big on the Tampa Bay Derby, so I really wasn't looking at much from that race. But I think they just kind of mismanaged this horse a little bit. The Champagne, after that, going to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, probably not the best decision. Maybe that was an owner's decision to try to get a little taste of the Breeders' Cup, and that's fine. But not the best opportunity if you were trying to team it up to try to get into the Derby this year. Probably would have sat that one out and look for other opportunities coming in. Tampa Bay Derby second, and then a 6th in the Bluegrass. So it's got some rest. It's well freshened up. The workouts aren't fantastic, but it definitely makes sense to close up a little ground. I'm just taking speed, but this is a closer that could hit the board. And at 4-1, probably will with Pratt. So I'm going to go 9 on top with the 3, 7, and 10.
Yeah, this is probably by far the hardest race that I had to handicap. That everybody thinks
you can go a lot of different ways.
Yeah, because I've got 4 horses here that like I could all see winning. I think ideally, I think I'm still kind of jostling back and forth. I'll probably have to dial it in a little bit more, but I think the 5 is interesting here. Citizen Bull, Martin Garcia was historically the jockey here. We saw what this horse did at the Derby. I wouldn't say it's the cleanest move that they ever made, but pretty dangerous move they made when they broke out, but they did break out on top, which I thought was going to be an issue. I haven't seen a horse break out on top from the 1 hole in a long time, which they did. So obviously getting from the gate and getting to the position that they need is not going to be a problem for this horse. And I think it's probably one of the stronger horses in the race. I think obviously it's Bob Baffert, Mike Smith, a combination that we all know very well, out of Into Mischief. This horse goes to the front. That's what they do, and they win races when they do it. Now, the Santa Anita Derby was a little tough, right? They ran against Journalism, who's obviously in the big race here. Baeza, like these horses are I think a step above this horse. And
Yeah.
then, they ran it back, and then they went to the Kentucky Derby. And obviously, like I said, they broke out well. They got to the position they wanted. They pushed the fractions, but then it's a long race. It's not a sprint race by any means. It's not a race that, you can kind of run those murderous fractions and win. So I think this is a perfect spot for him. I think this is what you want to see. That's a grade one, but you're getting down to 7 furlongs for a horse that can get out, that can get aggressive and go with Mike Smith aboard. So I think I'm landing on the 5 as my top pick. Just for the simple fact that I think they've ridden against tougher. They've shown what they wanted to do. It just hasn't been enough. So, you're running a grade one still, but I think this is obviously miles less than what they've been going
Yeah.
against. So,
Interesting. They're taking the blinkers off. Horses traditionally run with blinkers every time.
yep,
I would say that if they're taking the blinkers off and the horse is giving up at the end, they're trying to get some more fight out of the colt
yep.
in the later stages towards the finish line, and that could bode really well. If the statistics shows that California horses shipping to Saratoga are performing well, this probably should be your top pick.
Agreed. Yeah, and obviously it hasn't. The statistics over a long period of time, which we've talked about in depth many times, it hasn't been great. But again, this is a Bob Baffert horse, which I have more confidence in than if it was just any old
Yeah,
shipper from California. So I've
understood.
got the 5. I've got the 5 on my big board here. I do like the 4 right inside of them. Patch Adams is also a horse to take a look at. Right, they just ran
Yeah.
a really good race. Granted, it's an open company race, so you're not running in the stakes class, but they did get the job done. They ran a 104 speed figure, best speed figure that they've ran in their career. They've also posted a 102 when they broke their maiden. They won by 10 lengths. When they posted that 102, it was at the 7 furlongs distance,
Mm-hmm.
and they won by 10 lengths, right? But again, class considered, they ran a 6.5, which obviously is just a little less than this race on a sloppy track, and got the job done. Ran a great speed figure again at the condition, and won by 2.25. So I think there's
Right.
a very capable horse in the 4, which I thought was very difficult to go against as well. I've got the 7, like you said. I think this horse has really shown glimpses of really good runs. I mean, that 109 speed figure at a maiden, 80K. Granted, it's maiden 80K. You still have to run the speed figure in the race that you need to run to win.
Yeah.
They won by 7 lengths. They drew off. It was pretty much an easy ride for them all the way through. They bounce it back at Keeneland. Keeneland at a 7 furlongs race do the same exact thing. Actually, they go to the front and then they win by 2.25, posting a 95 speed figure. So obviously, they take the step up. The progression says, "Yep, let's see what we got," and they won that race with almost ease as well. So they kind of edged off and cleared off and won. So the 7 makes a lot of sense. And then for a stretch, for a very big stretch, I think the 11's got something here.
Mm.
I think it's Dylan Davis, which Dylan Davis at Saratoga has historically over the last couple of years been very profitable. I think you could just watch some of the races and see how he rides back in New York, and it's a different jockey. And again, looking back when they ran the 7 furlongs, and it was their best race that they've ever run. They ran a 99 speed figure. It was an ungraded stakes race, but they sat stalking the entire way. And Dylan Davis ended up winning the race by 5 lengths at the condition, at what you want to see. When they stretched out and they went a little bit further, didn't have its best stuff. When it went 5.5, yeah, they broke their maiden. They bounced it back to a 5 furlongs, didn't have it. 6 furlongs, still needed a little bit more extra juice. So I think this is a
Mm-hmm.
perfect distance to put them in at 12 to 1 on the 11. I think to pick up, second or third, I think is a really good price for Dylan, and could shock a lot of people. So I'm typically a 2 to 3 horse guy, but this one was just so wide open to me that I had to throw more combinations in this leg.
Yeah.
So I've got the 5 with the 4, 7, and 11 here.
Yeah, I looked at that 11 extensively. The last 2 races have just been trouble races for the 11, either
Yeah,
getting bumped around or getting steadied and losing momentum. Especially, I think if you go 2 back, that's the race that really counted. Is that just when it was making its move, it was a couple lengths away, got checked, and then before you know it, couldn't make that ground back up. You lose all momentum, you're kind of done. We
yep.
saw that in the Derby with with one of my horses that had to get checked there, which we're not going to re-talk about. But yeah, the 11 would be very interesting. If you can scratch the last 2 races here, the horse makes a lot of sense. But I think those races kind of get it to where it needs to be, and the cutback definitely helps.
Yep.
Let's go to the 12th race. 2 away here now. So our ticket is astronomical as far as the combinations that we have to go with. We've got to find a single here, kid. This is a mile and 3/16. This one's on the turf. It's the grade 1 Manhattan, a purse of $1 million for 4-year-olds and upwards. I probably know where you're going to go, but I'm going to go where I'm going to go. I'm going to go with Spirit of St. Louis. This is going to be Manny Franco with a coming off the pace kind of move. Strictly been running turf, been running a lot of grade 1, grade 2s. Speed figures 190 and 97 for the last three. That's just for the three opportunities for this year. And they shifted around from Gulfstream Park to the fairgrounds to Churchill Downs. And honestly, two back on the Lasix, not the best race here, and it kind of finished in a kind of out-kicking performance. Made the move, looked great, just got out-kicked on horses that were doing the same thing. Maybe the timing was off. Manny getting the last opportunity at the Turf Classic, I think that's where you really get to understand the horse coming from 10th back, although it was only about 4 or 5 lengths. Just carving your way out. I think Manny's going to be able to do the same thing here. She'll get the smart ride. I'm going to take this one for Chad Brown winning. Chad Brown historically usually does pretty good at Saratoga, so this is probably one of the winners I think he's going to get for the day, which I think he's going to get a couple. Then I'll go, again, in no specific order. I like the 2, Integration with Flavian Pratt. This one's another one that should be coming off the pace, but is tactical enough to sit a little closer if they decide. I like the 3, Highway Robber, another one that could sit off the pace. Now, you only got a small sample size here for this year. They took the horse to maiden, didn't really do well at all, but then bring it back, run it at Churchill in the Turf Classic, and was making up some really good ground. Again, just kind of got outkicked. Kind of the same process here that we're talking about with a 3rd for Decky Can. Christian Torres getting the mount here in this race for Brian Lynch. They do team up. They're about 50-50 as far as hitting the money and wins. So I think that is an opportunity as well because I'm looking for off the pace on this one. And then I'll go with the 5, Deterministic with Kendrick Carmouche. Kendrick Carmouche had a tactical ride today. One of the smarter jockeys that come into Saratoga, been riding the New York circuit for years. We've had him on many times. This is one that can go to the front and maybe not look back. He had one today that kind of did that on the turf, which you typically don't see. You'll see some closers or mid-packers starting to eat up the ground. He ran a really smart race from the 12 hole, got over in position, was able to sit, settle, still decent fractions, and won the race by about 4 or 5 lengths. If he has the same opportunity in this race with Deterministic, I think it's over as soon as it starts. So you'll know out of the gates if Deterministic has an opportunity to win. If it's sitting mid-pack, probably in the trouble and looking for minors. But 5's definitely going to be on there. So I will take the 6 on top, and I'm going to put the 5 in the second position on that note, 3, and then 2 in that order.
I landed on the 9.
Here we go.
This is, I mean, it's like kismet, right? We just talked about it.
Yeah.
It's meant to be. You know, we've had the conversation. This is one of the most dangerous. It was one of the most dangerous combinations in the sport, especially at Saratoga on the turf. You know, I can't help but think that there's going to be some divine intervention on Saturday to get this horse past the finish line first.
Yeah.
You know, Joel riding for Miguel Clement, you know, ever since, which you don't see very often, where you see, you know, Jose or Irad having a mount and then Joel comes aboard and then that's when they start winning. Right. It's usually the reverse. Yeah. Joel's aboard. It's not doing what it needs to get done. They get one of these other jockeys on, they start winning. It's reverse. He's actually made this horse a lot better in his last 5 races that they've run together. Aside from one race, which was a Breeders' Cup turf, which obviously, again, huge race. You're at Del Mar, you're shipping there. It takes a lot out of the horse. Obviously, they didn't have their best stuff that day. But again, if you look at the horse that they're running against, obviously a lot of competition in that race. You're getting the same thing here, but Joel's ridden this horse to perfection for the last 5 races since he got aboard. He knows when he needs to go. They've won on the front end, so they could win on the front end if they need to go, if that's the way the race pans out. Or they can sit patiently like they have in a couple different races and just bide their time and pull the trigger when they need to go. You know, this horse is ridden in the Grade 1 class and has gotten the job done. They ran in Grade 3 on the Pan American. They won that one. They won the Man of War, which is a Grade 2. So the next step is let's get this horse back into a Grade 1 and do what they've done in the last couple of races. So I think a lot of things are speaking to me here in this one. Like I said, I love what I see out of the 9. Seeing that, you know, Miguel's got 2 horses in this race. Why not go to the old trusty connection that they once had?
I love you took that pick.
So the 9 is my top choice. You know, I'll ride on that one, and if I have to single because the ticket's astronomical, I'll just kind of ride the faith on that one. But you know, underneath, I'd be crazy to keep that 5 off, like you said. His other horse that they have in this race, this might be the Rabbit. Honestly, this might be the horse where they say go out there, let all the speed go, and let Farbridge kind of sit behind, you know, and do the thing. A little bit of a tactic change there. You get 2 opportunities essentially in a strategic standpoint, right? You got a horse on the front end and you got a horse stalking. So whichever one has its best day is going to come out victorious maybe. But again, too, Joel's ridden this horse. He's ridden it multiple times. Kendrick rode the last time out in the Grade 2. They got the job done. They won by 4.5. Very, very strong effort. Beat Carson's Run, which is another horse in this race. The horse is out of Liam's map, which is, a good breeding when it comes to the turf standpoint. But Kendrick is, like you said, he's a very smart jockey and he's very aggressive when he needs to be. I know when we've talked to Kendrick a couple times, everybody calls him, oh, he's a good great jockey. He's a good speed jockey. And that's what he does on these horses. And he's got a horse that definitely goes out to the front and does that. So I wouldn't see him changing up the tactic too much from last time out. And I think he's going to get really aggressive. And if they get the right fractions, it could be very difficult to beat on the front end. So I've got that horse in there as well. And then I think the 6 is something to take a look at as well. Yeah, I mean, last time out was a great effort. They made the move at the perfect time. I thought watching that race, I thought this race was over. I did not think that they were going to come and win the race. And lo and behold, they closed like crazy, 6.5 off, and they ended up winning by 3/4 of a length. Very, very strong horse, very strong showing. It's Chad Brown on turf at Saratoga.
Mm-hmm.
You always got to be keeping your eye on Chad Brown when it comes to Saratoga, especially on the turf. This horse is very good. I mean, there's nothing you can say about this horse that would say different. Manny Franco's ridden this horse multiple times. He's won multiple times on this. He's very confident. It's going to be a very difficult horse to beat. So it just kind of depends on how the shape of the race turns out. But I think they've got a really, really good shot as well. So that's where I'm going. 9 with the 5-6 in this leg.
Yeah, the 4, the 6, and the 9, the only horses here in the field that have won at Saratoga before. So interesting.
Yeah.
We did not talk about the 4 Carson's run. Again, this is another one with Dylan Davis that I wouldn't be surprised if Dylan pulled off something here on a closing effort. It does have a lot of closing ability as well, and great late pace figures. So I wouldn't be surprised if Carson's run, if all 3 of them were the ones at the line. But trying to find some prices. Again, we're not clicking. We better have a single in this last game. If we don't have a single, then I don't even, we're gonna have to take a big house equity loan to get this ticket put together. Last race 13, 1.25 miles, the grade 1 Belmont Stakes, purse of $2 million for 3-year-olds. I'll tell you this, and looking at the body of the race, everybody wants to talk about sovereignty and everybody wants to talk about journalism because that's the match that everybody wants to see. But I don't think that's going to be the highlight of the race. I don't think that's what you're going to come down to when it comes down to the wire. The story for me is the horse that didn't get to run in the Derby and is going to be running in this race, and that's going to be Rodriguez. And I like Rodriguez on top. I think the forward pace is gonna really pan out for the opportunity at Saratoga. I like the 5 furlong workout that it just recently had. That was at 1 minute and 2/5. I think this is Mike Smith and Bob Baffert's opportunity to go ahead and run them off their feet. It's a long race. It'd be shocking if he can get away with some slower fractions, but the horse has been running 47 and 111 and being able to still have something left. I don't think the extra, 1/8 of a mile, the extra panel is going to change anything if he's out there winging. It was one of my top picks in the Derby before it got scratched. One of the pace setters, I figured that would be a part of it and could also sit off if it had to. The horse likes near the front, and that's where Mike's going to put him. And I like that he's got the inside position, no hustling over. Should be an easy lead, and I hope it maintains an easy lead. And I think Mike's going to get this one done for Bob. So that's the storyline for me, and that's where I'm going to go. So I'm going to take the 3 on top. Now, saying that, I think Sovereignty is just a really good horse, and I think Journalism is just a really good horse. So the 2 and the 7 are definitely going to be my underneaths. But the one I think that could even upset them, possibly in the second position, is Beza. I really, really like the race that he ran last time out at the Kentucky Derby. I just think that kind of a closing move at 1.25 miles is what you're going to have to do here. Same kind of path, maybe a little easier trip, maybe not as far back, but ran well with the 2 finishers that we expect. So I think you're seeing the Kentucky Derby 0.20, but with Rodriguez in, changes it for me, puts Rodriguez on top with those 3 following behind in any order.
Yeah, it took 5 races, but we've actually linked up on our top choice here. I was very high on Rodriguez coming into the race for the Derby. And then obviously with the scratch, kind of had to pivot a little bit and ended up pivoting the right way. Yeah. But I think Rodriguez, I think this horse is very sneaky, right? Because they haven't raced in any of the Triple Crown races, even though they were supposed to. They've had quite the layoff. The Wood Memorial is kind of indicative of what you want to see here, right? You're going further, but you're going out there and you're just going to go to the front and you're just going to try not to look back and hopefully hold on to the lead. I think being that this is such a long race, that there's going to be horses that are going to be scared to go out there and push the fractions and burn out their horses too quickly. There's one horse that I think might get a little aggressive, but I don't know if they have what it takes to get out clean like they're going to. And I'd be crazy to leave this horse off, especially after how high I was on this horse. So I think they're going to go up to the front. I think they're going to set those fractions, and I think they're going to have a very good ride. And they just have to hold on to the oncoming foes, which you've mentioned, which I'm also on. Obviously, I think that Sovereignty is a great horse. Won the Derby. It was a top pick for me. And has shown all the right things in the last couple of races, right? I mean, obviously, aside from the Florida Derby, which you get a jockey change and it's not the same way they've been riding. You get Alvarado back aboard. They win the biggest race of the year. So you're getting Alvarado again on a fresh horse that won the Derby. But again, if there are slow fractions on the front end, which I'm kind of hoping there will be, and I'm kind of anticipating my handicapping, it's going to be very difficult for them to close in and beat the speed, right? So they really have to have a perfect trip. But like I said, if the speed kind of goes out with them and they start wheeling and Rodriguez is up there fighting with somebody else, this is going to be the horse that's going to be the one to beat, in my opinion. And they've obviously shown it. The distance is not a problem for them. Obviously, they can do it. They can go. And so I think they're going to be very difficult. Once again, I'm going to be taking off journalism out of my selections here, or going against it, because I do think that there's something to that 6 as well, right? They almost finished better than journalism in that race. They almost beat journalism in that race.
Correct.
They came faster than anybody else. They were closing like crazy. Flavian Pratt also took that mount knowing that was the horse he really wanted to be on, and ended up being on it. And they made the most of the effort. Yeah, they finished by, third by, almost 2 lengths, but they were coming so crazy that if they run that same exact trip, they're going to be closing like a freight train. And I think they close better than anybody. So the 6 is very strong, very sneaky. They didn't run in the Preakness. So obviously they've got a little bit of freshening up as well. The reason I'm throwing journalism off is just for that reason. You're running the Triple Crown race. You didn't win the Derby. You won the Preakness. Horrible ride. I think if you get a horrible ride here, especially for a horse that's probably a little bit tired, it's going to be very difficult for them to win. So a lot stacked up against them, which is why I kind of tossed them off. So that's where I landed. Like I said, it took 5 races for us to do it, but 3 with the 2 and the 7 here is where I'm going to land.
Listen, I'm glad we finally synced up for one race that we could at least throw the single on, cut the ticket down about $500,000. But I will say this, is that journalism has beat Rodriguez before, right?
Yep.
We already know that in the San Felipe. We also know that Rodriguez has beat Beza before. So we're overlapping 3 races where journalism just barely beat Beza, but really beat Rodriguez by about 11 lengths. And then you've got Rodriguez beating Beza by 7. So it's anyone's race. It's how the race is run. And if that's the determination of who's the better of the 3 in this race, then it's going to come down to pace. And I'd rather have the guy setting the pace to be able to last versus someone who's going to have to try to close in, because then it's all about timing. And then you got to go to jockey. And if I'm going with a closer or anybody off pace, I would take Sovereignty or Beza well over journalism in this case. But I think journalism is going to be forwardly placed in this race. And I'd expect to see journalism sitting actually 2nd or 3rd and not letting Rodriguez get too far ahead. And if need be, push the pace a little earlier and try to run past and then have them catch them. It'll be interesting. It's all going to be on strategy. Usually does come down in these races. A little upset it's not a big a field as I expected to have in here. And then wasn't Ripoli's got – who's Ripoli got in this race? Didn't he have somebody in this race?
Rispoli? He's on journalism.
No, not Rispoli. Ripoli.
Oh, Ripoli.
Yeah, who did he have in this race? I thought he was throwing a horse in to say that he was gonna. Maybe not.
I didn't think so. I didn't see anything.
No, I think he was just being a smart ass about throwing a horse in there, just to make the field this. But I don't like seeing the Belmont be only so many horses. You start the Derby with so many, and then it just kind of peters out and kind of takes away from the momentum what you're trying to get. There's no Triple Crown winner, but you're still trying to have something exciting to look forward to. Should be a good race. There's some decent horses in here.
Yeah.
And it's all going to come down to pace.
Agreed.
All right, we got a big ticket there. That's our pick 5. That's going to be probably one of the priciest pick 5s you'll ever see in your life. Going to have to dwindle down some of these picks. But I like the way you handicapped this week. You could be on your way to another 4 in a row going into the Belmont. If you hit the first one, I'm throwing all my picks away. So if this is to all the listeners out there, if the kid hits the first race, just scratch everything on my ticket. I'll see you when we get to the next time we come on, because
We should have did the pick 6 so that we could see by the pick 5 if I'm on or not. Just handicap the 6, the race prior, and then
Yeah. Well,
just
I
the
didn't want
warm
to
up
end
race.
it. I think the last race is a maiden race too, and I don't want to carry over on that as well. But the way you want to end is on the Belmont. So that's your pick 5. That's your Belmont handicapping. So kid, we've talked about this before. We're still kind of figuring out what's going on with the podcast here. We're gonna still try to do it, still try to maintain getting our opportunities to come on. It's not every week like we were doing. Life changes and things swing over. So, we'll try to pick up definitely on the big days, big race days. Other than that, just kind of keep following us on Twitter. To everybody that listens and follows to the podcast, we always appreciate all the feedback and everybody listening, and listening to our picks and basically listening to the kid to cash tickets. But I've appreciated the support for the last 5 years, going on 5 years, and not saying that we're shutting it down, but just kind of we're around. We're still on Twitter. We're still active on Twitter, and the picks will just be a little more spaced out on weeks in between. So,
Agreed.
Yeah, but we're still here. We're not going anywhere. Anything else, kid?
Nope.
All right. Other than that, for myself and the kid, until next time, we'll see you.